Hi guys, ShoDesu here. In this week's video, I want to cover the fundamentals of laning and spacing. It is very common to see a lot of support players, especially enchanters, idly sit behind their AD carry for most of laning phase and to not have any lane presence. I want to go over how we can avoid this and play in a way where we have a lot of presence and pressure that will win you your lane. Let's start with defining what having a strong presence means in lane. A support that has a strong presence in lane will constantly challenge the enemy's positioning and will always be looking for angles to punish the enemy, whether it's for misspacing or contesting farm. What separates a good support player and a great support player is how often they can punish the mistakes an enemy makes. If you can non-stop play aggressive on a support, you will be applying a lot of pressure in lane. So how can we achieve having a strong presence in lane? That all comes down to spacing. I like to visualize spacing by imagining circles. The circles represent the range where a champion's abilities or autos can reach. Each champion has their own size depending on the range of their abilities. Having lane presence as a support is to create space where your AD carry can walk up without the fear of taking a bad trade and to constantly look to punish the enemy. Creating space can be achieved by zoning the enemy. In this example, Renata is creating a lot of space for Misfortune because of how she is positioned in the bush. Jinx and Sona have to respect the bush because if they don't, they will get hit by her abilities. A really easy way to hit your skill shots as a support player is to wait for the enemy AD carry to go for a last hit on a minion. Instead of trying to predict where they are going to dodge, just wait till they need to walk up. When you do this, it's very important to not be in both the AD carry and support's range. I specifically positioned this example to be outside of Sona's range. If Renata walks in the spot where both Sona and Jinx's bubbles meet, you will automatically lose the trade, assuming that Sona and Jinx both attack you, because it will be a 2v1 exchange. This is a very important concept to understand because if you visualize this scenario, you will avoid taking bad trades and set up for winning trades. When you are laning, you want to constantly have your enemy at the edge of the circle. That way, if the enemy mispositions, you can instantly punish them. In this clip, Jinx tries to take a trade with Misfortune, but it ends up being a bad one for her. I'm sitting in the bush, but as soon as Jinx walks up, I mirror her in anticipation that she will look to auto Misfortune. She overextends and ends up in both of our bubbles, so we attack her at the same time. Sona is not in range to hit any of us, so they hard lose the trade. I want to emphasize the importance of bush control in lane. When you are able to sit in a bush, you create a lot of space because the enemy has to play under the assumption that you are at the edge of the bush or else they can get punished. Enemies will tend to throw out abilities at the bushes to try to hit you, but the bushes are actually very spacious and you have a lot of room to move. My favorite trick is to sit at the very corner of the bush to dodge abilities. If you are baiting abilities and zoning the enemy, you have a lot of presence in lane. One very important concept you need to know is how to drop minion aggro with bushes. If you attack an enemy in the bush, the minions will attack you because you are visible. To drop the aggro, you need to walk to an unwarded bush. The best way to utilize this mechanic is to walk out of the bush you are in, auto, and then walk back. Not only are you dropping the minion aggro, but the enemy will not be able to trade back with you because they won't be able to see you. Here's what this looks like in an actual game. Level 1, I walk up to the bush and I'm weaving in and out. I get an auto off Jhin and Jhin tries to trade with me, but his auto gets cancelled because I weave back into the bush. As he walks back in to try to auto, I walk out. When Jhin walks away from the bush, I walk back into the third bush to zone them even harder. Quick note, don't go too overboard with it. Make sure to be close enough so that you get EXP from the minions that die and you aren't too far away from your AD carry. It's okay to pace back and forth, but you need to be careful because if they turn on you, your ADC can't follow. If you're playing an engaged support, you can't zone as far because your AD carry can't follow up on your plays. You can zone a lot harder on champions that can throw out abilities to harass because they can shoot their skill shot and run away rather than to commit. Always make sure to be aware of your AD carry's position when you are going to zone or all in. Now that we know how to have a strong presence in lane, let's talk about when we can apply pressure. You can't play the space aggressively all the time because you can get ganked. You can play super aggressive if you know where the enemy relatively is. If you have no idea at all or assume they're around bot area, you have to respect it and play as if they are about to gank you. Play super safe until you get information that allows you to play the space very tight again. In this clip, Draven is alone and he is very low. We saw Renata walk up into the river, so I'm assuming that the enemy jungler is in the area to take dragon. Instead of playing the space aggressively, I sit back and play as if the jungler is waiting to gank us. Theoretically, the best way to play lane is to constantly pressure the enemy so that the enemy jungler or mid comes but to not die. If you can back off when they are going to gank you, they waste a lot of time while your team can make plays on the other side of the map. This takes a lot of map awareness, but if you can learn and apply the skill of knowing when to play aggressive and knowing when to back off, you will climb, as absorbing pressure is a win con. I have a video that talks about how you can improve your map awareness, so if you haven't checked that out, I will link it in this part of the video. As always, thank you so much for watching. The channel has been growing a lot and I'm super grateful that you all have been enjoying the content. If you have any more questions, I'm always happy to answer them in the comments, or you can ask them at my Twitch at twitch.tv/ShoDesu. Goodbye.